I'm not really sure what I want to talk about today. I have a couple episode ideas that I wrote in my notes, but as I was reading those, I was like, I don't really want to talk about those. Like, it's like in the moment whenever I wrote those in there, then I had the thoughts at the time and it would have flowed naturally. But I know myself and I know that I can't, like, even though I had a little bit of a script going on for a couple of them, I know that I can't follow a script well. Like it has to just flow out of my brain. That's why I continue to come back to the idea of like an actual podcast. Like there's a lot of other things that I'd like to do kind of like video essays over, but it really would have to be off the top of my head because it wouldn't be natural for me. Um I don't know, life has been kind of interesting. I flew on a plane for the first time a couple weeks ago, something like that. And honestly, I thought that I'd be more scared of it than I was, or like that it would be a bigger deal than it was, but it almost felt like I'd done it before and I just wasn't scared. But it's funny because like that can be like a big thing for a normal person, especially like if you have a phobia of heights. But there's not many things that I'm scared of that are like physical, especially death. I'm not scared of death. I have this idea that like if I'm going to die, I'm just going to die, so I'm not going to be scared of the potential of it happening. And like I also just do my best to live in the moment. Like everything you do in life, there's a risk. You know, even every time that you go drive, there's a risk. So I kind of just go into it like knowing that whatever happens, I'm either gonna be able to come back from it, I'm gonna be able to recover, even if it's difficult, or I mean I'm just gonna die. And like death doesn't scare me anymore. Honestly, I don't think death has scared me for a while. If anything, I've always been intrigued by death. Um I've almost always believed in the idea of reincarnation. Like ever since I learned what that term meant, to me it was just like a fact. Like it's something that I just believe happens. And I also believe that like energy, I've never been like religious, but I believe that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Like from a scientific perspective, the laws of energy, that's more of like what I follow my life with. Um I have a lot of like spiritual perspectives and they're kind of backed by certain types of science, and that's why that makes sense to me. Does that make sense? There's so many things going on in my brain, but it's all like little things that I don't have much to say. But I don't know, today I'm just gonna freestyle it like I used to, and I feel like that feels more authentic anyway. Um, like one thing I've noticed is not one thing, but if I've been noticing more and more how a lot of my personality traits are matched up with me being neurodivergent, especially with like my autism diagnosis. And there's a lot that goes into like accepting that I am autistic, and it still doesn't feel right. I still feel like an imposter. Like I feel like I'm hearing the things, like people haven't even said these things to me, but I feel like I'm hearing them because I feel like I'm anticipating the worst. I'm hearing that people are going to say like I'm an imposter and like there's no way that I can be autistic because I'm also like, because I look too normal to them, because I act too normal. But what really helps me is that I follow so many other people on like TikTok and everything who are autistic and also who have ADHD, who are women who are high masking, who got diagnosed late. So like, you know, people almost in like my exact situation. And that helps me feel a lot less crazy or like an imposter because I can relate to so many of these things, and there's no way that all of our all of us got misdiagnosed, right? Also, there's just no way. It's like this is the one thing that I'm so sure of is once I got the diagnosis, it just made everything make sense. Um and it's so funny seeing like matching everything up. I'm like, "Oh, that's why I do this. That's why this happened. That's why this person did this and blah blah blah." And it's like I have this fear that, you know, people that I grew up with are going to see my content and they're going to be like, "Oh no, she's faking it. She was normal to me." But then at the same time, I know that a lot of these same people were the ones who outcasted me because they knew that something was weird about me. Something about me made them uncomfortable. You know, it was off putting. And I saw this, somebody was like, you know, the girls in third grade somehow knew that I was neurodivergent before anybody else did. And you could just tell by the way that you were treated by them. And I'm just like, man, it's like I remember a few years ago, I started the journey of like self-love and accepting who I was and just developing a better relationship with myself and working through all the negative self-talk and becoming more confident in myself and really just figuring out who I was overall. Um and I didn't imagine that like getting diagnosed with autism was going to be one of the things, and that it would be so impactful on my life. And I think back a lot to childhood me, and I'm just, yeah, I'm like heartbroken for her, but then I know that like she's still within me, and I know that she would look up to me. um I don't know if you've heard, there's the term for like, okay, it's like you can look at somebody and like feel envy, but like it doesn't have to be envy, it can be like inspiration, right? And like there was always this certain category of women that I looked up to in the movies. It was always that like slightly alt character that was different than everybody else, but she owned it and she was cool. I always thought she was cool. And I remember when I would see people like this in real life, there would be these little things about them that like felt comforting, or like I just knew that like I wanted to be them. I was like, I knew that other people didn't always see them as like the cool girl, but I saw them as a cool girl. And I made a comment to my partner earlier. I was like, you know, like the older I get, the more that I realize I have like turned into the girls that I used to look up to as a kid. And I think that's really sweet. And it's like, I just know that my younger me would love to know that like this is what she grew up to be. So I don't even remember if I've mentioned this, but I did quit my job. um, and I hesitate talking about it because I know that, you know, people like to turn things into competition and say like, oh, like you can't complain about your life because you have it so much better. It's like the life that I live now is the best life that I've ever lived. Like I grew up, I shouldn't have, I basically grew up poor and neglected, but I shouldn't have been poor because my parents prioritized other things over taking care of their children and being responsible. So I I grew up very lonely and unsupported, and it wasn't until I was in my teen years that anybody took us seriously, like my late teens, until everybody realized how bad our situation was. Like, and so, anyways, whenever I was 19, I moved out on my, well, with a roommate. And that was my first time like out on my own. And the people who raised me were very critical and very judgmental and very absent. Like asking how my day was, that was like a foreign experience. You know, I remember actually being told that I was always like too much. It's like I talked too much and I was too emotional, and I grew up with this feeling that I was a burden, and I was constantly told that I was stupid. And even if I wasn't directly told I was a burden, me asking for anything was seen as an inconvenience. It was met with like, you know, a negative reaction. And so I was taught that to want anything got me in trouble. And so I would try to ask for as little as possible. I like, you know, tried to make myself as small as I could. I tried to change all the things about myself that everybody told me was wrong. And long story short, like I stopped doing that. And I mean, sure, it still leaks in a little bit, but not nearly as much as it used to. Like it doesn't rule my life anymore. And instead of trying to be somebody else for the other people in my life who were so critical and judgmental of me, I started figuring out who I was and like accepting the things that I couldn't change and changing the things I couldn't accept. Um, and slowly, you know, I gained confidence and I started to figure out who I actually was, which took a long time because behind all the mask, not only just the masking because because I'm neurodivergent, but me trying to follow this path that everybody had set up for me because they told me that that would make them proud and that that was, you know, the right thing to do. It was really hard to like let go of all of that. I went from like my goal was always to be a straight A student and work my way into college and graduate with like a some type of like graduate and become a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, an engineer. And I thought that by 22 I would have a bachelor's and I would find a good job and I would find a house and a partner and have the nuclear family and everything. But it was when I was 19 that everything blew up in my face, and it was like the hardest thing that I'd ever experienced, but it was the thing that shaped me today. It was whenever I had I had a family member pass very unexpectedly. I had another family member go into the psych ward, and I experienced my very first breakup all within the span of 3 months. I had just turned 19. Um, that was really hard. But every day I just pushed through, and I always told myself that it would be better, that this was going to be worth it, that things were going to be better. And I don't know how I knew, but like I'm so grateful for the life that I live now, where I don't have to pretend to be somebody else. I'm around people who always encourage me to be myself, who I know genuinely appreciate me as I am. Like I have people who care about what I have to say, and that means so much to me. Growing up with people who literally told me I talked too much and that I needed to stop talking and that I was annoying and all of that. It took a lot for me to embrace everything about myself when it was everything that people told me was wrong. Like everything that I show on the internet, like how much I talk and like me crying and opening up and being vulnerable when it comes to my insecurities and things like that. These were all things I used to be so ashamed of. And like I think about what I want in life, and now it's just like I'm so content with my life how it is now. Like there are things that like I can't keep living the way that I am now. Like finances are still a worry, but I'm trying to figure that out. And in the meantime, I am so blessed to have a partner who can financially support us both while I'm figuring that out. And I just could not have imagined this. Like somehow I knew that life was going to get better, and I'm just like I just hope that everybody knows that. It's like, have you ever seen that meme of the guy, there's two guys and they're mining through a tunnel, and you can see through it. So you can see that one of these guys that keeps going, he's about to hit diamonds, but this other guy, he gets tired and he turns back. But if he were to just keep persisting just a little bit longer, he would have hit the diamonds and it would have been worth it. That's kind of, what I'm trying to get at here. It's like you don't know what's waiting just right there. Like I would have like I would be in really tough situations, and then something would just happen in my life that I'm like I could have never imagined. Like some like what is it? Like some of these things are disguised. Like one time I got fired from my job, right? Over a completely false it was the type of review where it was like these women thought that I was being passive aggressive when I wasn't. And I think, this is part of the struggle of like being neurodivergent and having different communication styles and like not knowing people have been passive aggressive to me in the past and I didn't catch it until way later. I didn't know that these ladies thought that I was being passive aggressive until they sent in the email, and when they told me what the email said, I was like, "Oh my gosh." They thought that I was kicking them out of the restaurant, and I wasn't, because I was just telling them that I was leaving, and I'm going to spare you the details, but they thought that I was rushing them out of the restaurant when I was not. And now I kind of understand how, if I was being passive aggressive, how it could have been seen that way, but I wasn't being passive aggressive. Like there's so much in communication that has to do with the words that you use and the tone. And it was just a shit situation where without even talking to me, they fired me. And I had just moved into my apartment alone because I was with a roommate originally, and then I moved out on my own. So I was literally had like $33 in my bank account. I was crying on the kitchen floor because I could not believe that I had just gotten fired from this job that I really enjoyed, that made good money. But that led up to actually me getting a job at a different place, and that was all right. You know, it actually made more money, but it was like a very stressful work situation because at this place, most of the servers were my age and we just knew too many of the same people, and same issue with communication where people thought that I was passive aggressive, or they thought that I was too good for them because I spent a lot of time by myself and I didn't try to go to a lot of the same events that they did, or when they would invite me to things, I would decline, and they saw that as rude and they thought that it was me thinking that I was too good for them. When in reality, I just wasn't interested in that stuff, but they got confused about that because me being so extroverted when they did speak to me, it confused them. And so anyways, lots of drama there. I ended up leaving, and family member went to jail at this time too, and it was a big mess. I ended up leaving that, getting my job at the vape shop, lowest paying job I'd ever worked. And I had to work the most hours I had ever worked. Like, I was working actually full time because when you work server jobs, typically you can't even get full time. Um, and this was like only my second job ever, I think, that was not a server job. Anyways, I was making $10 an hour working full time, but I was so much happier. And I was like, I could never have imagined that because the job that I was working was so stressful that, like, me getting fired from that other job and having all this drama at this other job that led up to this one, it was like a blessing in disguise. Because at this job, I was finally able to calm down enough. I didn't realize that what it was a lot of the social interaction burning me out. I didn't have a lot of that work drama anymore. It was relatively chill, lower stimulation overall, and there was a lot of downtime for me to just be on my phone or read or play on my Switch or whatever I wanted to do. um but yeah, my point there was just it was a blessing in disguise. You know, it's like you really do just have to trust the process. Like, you don't know what might lead you somewhere else. This also, around this time, I got into the idea of like spirituality and manifestation, and I was consuming a lot of that type of content. And so I was following a lot of certain spiritual laws that they would say. Like something about the law of attraction. I don't even remember what that means anymore because I don't like actively study it. It's just there are certain concepts that I still use and live my life by. Like, excuse me. Like, I'm very careful about what I give my energy to. For example, if I don't want negative energy in a certain aspect of my life, I don't even I don't even talk about it on the internet because I don't want anybody to feel like they're entitled to an opinion. I don't engage with hate comments. I don't respond to any of them, you know. I don't engage with troll comments. I will block and delete comments, and then I just let them leave my mind. I don't, how do I say that? That's me like maintaining my peace, I guess. It's like I'm not afraid of the block button because most people don't notice that you blocked them, and if they do, it's like, well, you were blocked for a reason. It's fine. It doesn't matter if other people get upset, right? Like, you kind of said something mean in my comments. I think it's okay if I block you. Um, I block certain words from the search because sometimes I mention like a couple things, and then I don't know, people like to if I mention my partner, people will comment on that, and so I just keep it short. I don't tell people anything about my personal life, right? Um, Also, just the people that I hang out with, right? I am very careful about who I hang out with, partially because I'm just like, it's when it comes to people, it's not like I hate people, but I don't just want to hang out with just anybody. Like, because I enjoy my alone time so much, and like even the people in my life like that I'm closest to, like my partner, I literally live with him. I still have my alone time every day. It's necessary for me. And what am I trying to say? I don't remember what my point was there. I don't know. But I was thinking, so I'm doing my best to not continue moving the goalpost. Like, I used to be like, oh, once I get here, then I can celebrate. Once I do this, then I can celebrate. But then once I get there, then I don't. And so I've been working on that and doing my best to enjoy what I have and do the things that I said I was going to do and not like move on immediately. Like, I said that when we moved into a house, then I was going to spend a lot more time outside with my book and my coffee or my journal and some type of warm drink, maybe a hot tea, maybe an iced tea or a or an iced coffee, a cold coffee. um, and then I won't do it because I just like forget that it's an option or I keep on trying to look for the next thing. And so rather than trying to look for the next thing, I've tried to slow down and enjoy where I'm at. And I think um I've been doing pretty decently with that. Like I also said that I wanted to start going to the gym and have a proper gym routine and eat better. And I was doing pretty well with that, and enjoying the process genuinely. Like I would catch myself chopping up some potatoes to roast them to meal prep, and then I just think like, wow, I'm enjoying this. Like this is a life I always imagined. Like a nice kitchen. My kitchen lets in a lot of light, which I love. Um and overall the whole upstairs, it's like a vaulted ceiling. I don't know if vaulted is the right word, but it's a nice like open and it feels warm. And I have a little corner that I like where I can sit and read my books or my journal, or I haven't tried to do this yet, but I could probably put my laptop in my lap while I'm sitting there and like, you know, put some stuff in my digital diary. It's really the little things. One thing that I really want to do is get one of those planter boxes. I don't know what it's called, but you get what I mean when I say planter box. Like literally just a box that I can put outside, fill it with soil, and plant some stuff. I also want a couple pots where I can scatter some wildflower seeds in there, and have a little food for the pollinators. Um, our wasp pollinators. Ugh, I had a wasp like try to. Anyways, bees and butterflies would be cool. I'd also just like the process of like watching something I've nurtured grow. Which that in itself is also really symbolic. I love using analogies, nature analogies, and applying that to my real life, right? Like I see potential in most things like as a seed, right? It's like if you nurture that seed, then it can grow. If you nurture, like you have an idea and you continue to feed it and water it and nurture it, it is bound to grow. Now, some people have like a hard time taking care of certain plants. So maybe that's just not your plant. Maybe you just got to find your plant, right? It's like that type of thing. But you won't know unless you try. Like some people have preferences over certain plants, but they discover that through failures with other plants or just getting more and more plants and then coming to have a preference. You know what I mean? Like you don't learn anything by like not doing. That's one thing. A huge thing I've been trying to implement in my life and I feel like has changed my life is not sitting around and waiting and trying to be perfect. It's like you don't come to the right conclusion or the right idea or like magically come up with like the most optimal thing by thinking about it for weeks on end and then executing it. Sometimes maybe that happens, but a lot of the times the way that you figure out the right answer is by just making a choice and figuring out that it's the wrong one, which guides you more and more towards the right one. Because I used to be so scared of doing the wrong thing that I would just freeze and not do anything at all. And then I feel like I've started to learn the art of like adapting and working with what you have. And does that make sense? Just working with what you have and believing that it's always going to be enough, believing that you always have the tools. There's one of my really old journals from whenever I was in that transition into moving out on my own. Um, I was in the process of finding a job and I also had to contact, so many people to drive me to and from work because I didn't have a car and my goal was to save up for a car and then move out. And in that journal, I have a sticky note saying something like, you have all the tools. Like you have everything that you need to get to where you want to be. And I had to believe that. And then the more I believed that, then the more I was able to see what I really did have. Because if you don't believe that if you don't believe that it exists, you're not going to look for it. Like, but you don't know what's really there until you let yourself look for it. Does that make sense? I wish that I could explain that better. basically by believing that I did have all the tools, then I started to look for the tools as if they existed. Because if you truly don't believe something exists and you're trying to look for it, you're really not looking for it, because you're really not trying it, because you don't believe it exists. And so because I convinced myself that the tools did exist, I was able to see resources that I didn't before. I was able to recognize that, like, hey, like, you might not want to ask these people for help. You might feel like you're a burden for asking for help, but these are resources, and these are people who literally told you that they could help you. These are people who literally told you to contact them if you need anything. So how about you try it? And so during this time, I really utilized all my resources. I also was still trying to learn to drive, right? So I contacted like 5 different friends of mine, even people that I hadn't really talked to that much, but like I felt like, I was close enough friends with them to teach me to drive. Like 1, 2, 3. I recall 4 different people teaching me to drive. This guy, I hadn't even known him much. I just talked to him on the internet a little bit, and I was like, "Hey, I'm trying to learn how to drive. You free to teach me?" And it was like my first time ever meeting him, and I was like, "Are you down to teach me to drive?" And now that I think about it, that's actually like not safe. Like, don't do that. Oh, but I knew this guy. This guy, no, no, no. But I was good, because this guy knew so many of the same people that I knew, and he knew my cousin, so I knew that he would never try to pull something, because he wouldn't be able to get away with it. But anyways, though that's not always the case. That's not always the case. Don't use that. But anyways, you gotta be discerning. So basically, my point is, like, you're never really stuck. That's one thing too. Sometimes you feel helpless and you feel stuck, and it is so valid to feel that way. But after your feelings, like, let yourself feel. That's my number one thing. You can't bottle things up, because that can show up in your life in ways you don't expect, because you're running from things, right? But anyways, once you're past the crying and everything, they say crash out as much as you need to, cry about it as much as you need to, but once you're done crying, come up with a solution and believe that there is one. And if you believe that it exists, you'll find a way. And it's not going to be instant. It's not going to be exactly what you think most of the time. A lot of times, just the same way that blessings can be disguised as, like, just disguised in general. Like how I was trying to say, like, whenever I got fired, it seemed like the worst thing to happen, but really it was a blessing because it led me up to that. It's like the solution that you want might look different than you expect. And it's not necessarily settling, but it's like, this is the next best choice. It's better than what I have now. And I can work my way out of this too. Like, it's not forever. Whatever decision you make, you can change your mind later. Most of the time. Almost all of the time. So you don't have to be afraid of making the wrong or the right decision, because you can still adapt later. You know what I'm trying to say? People get married and then they get divorced and then they get married again. Like, you don't have to be afraid of making the wrong decision, because the right decision is still going to be there waiting for you. Right decision. But really, who is measuring the rights and the wrongs, right? Only God can judge me, they say. And who is God? Debatable, right? I don't know, depends who you talk to on that, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I don't even know how long I've been recording for, because does it even tell me how long I've been recording for? Oh, it's right there. So, yeah, that's been a lot of the random yaps going on. I am trying to get back into the groove, I'm also, I try to be, I do my best to watch what words I'm using. Because when you're trying, you're already doing. So instead of saying try my best, I say I'm doing my best. Because when I'm trying, I am doing it. It's not just like a trial, an attempt. It's like, no, this is the process. Like, you are doing this, right? So I'm doing my best to get into a routine where I am able to work out and maintain, like, meal prepping and maintain content creation. I got a little bit off schedule this week because it was a different type of, I was, like, out of town and everything. And so even though I had a pre-recorded video, the app was acting up, and I also forgot what day it was. And then I tried to post it a day late, and then it wouldn't work. And I didn't think to just, like, delete and re-download the app. So anyways, I'm a little bit off from what I want, but my goal right now is to post on TikTok and YouTube Shorts daily and to post a long form video on YouTube every week. At one point, I do want to start going live on TikTok again, like I used to, and push people more over to YouTube because that's what I really want to do. I just feel like content creation wise, like TikTok doesn't feel like it's as sustainable, and I really feel more pushed to go more long form with YouTube. Um, and I am doing my best to get back into a proper workout routine. I am focusing more on my lower body and strengthening my core right now because that's where my main issues are. I also want to avoid my upper body right now because of the shoulder issue I have. Some people are saying like I posted a video about it, like trying to describe what is going on with my shoulder and how it doesn't sit right. And there's a lot of things that I need to look into regarding that. And I just think it's best that I avoid upper body right now so that I don't do any harm to it. So, anyways, that's like, and then I also want to continue writing. And my goal is to read more and scroll less. I've been really addicted to the screen lately. I've been struggling with switching tasks and just getting frozen. Like, it doesn't matter how much I want to do something. It's like, it's so difficult for me to transition into tasks lately. Like, and I don't always struggle with this, but that's been like a huge struggle lately. So, that's my goals right now. And just to live in the moment and see where things take me. You know, I'm really proud with how far I've come so far. Like, I think I have almost 250 subscribers on YouTube, which is really cool. Like, cause the views I think are gonna be a little bit harder because you know, my goal is to get monetized, and you need 1,000 subscribers and then a certain amount of watch hours, and that varies with your shorts and with like your long form content, I think. I'm not very close with that, but I know that as long as I continue with this, then things will get better. Um, and it's and on TikTok I've grown to like, what is it, 7,400 followers, and I know once you get to 10K then you can be monetized, but with what I've heard, I don't know about that being sustainable. I really do want to push people over to here. Um, but yeah, it's so crazy reading the comments of people saying that they're able to relate to the things that I've shared about my experiences, and it's so nice to know that I help people not feel so alone because that's, I think, the most difficult part of me being who I am, you know, with my neurodivergence, is that I thought that I was alone. I thought that I was crazy. And the one thing that I would tell myself to make myself feel better is that with 8 billion people in the world, I cannot be the only one having this experience. I was like, that's a lot of people. And, you know, so to be able to help other people recognize that they're not alone, I'm so grateful to be able to do that. So, yeah. Um, if you got this far, like, feel free to comment anything that you'd like me to talk about, or, you know, your thoughts, and yeah, just anything. Thanks for watching. Bye.